It's 6 o'clock on the 23rd of August 2015. Welcome along to Sunday Breakfast on BBC Radio Kent. 30,000 Ahmadiyya Muslims will be meeting this weekend to promote peace. We hear from their leader.
There should not be any extremism. There should not be anything which helps you to reserve the right of others in primary schools, in secondary schools, at every level. There should be daily pledge of the loyalty to their country.
Now, the leader of the Muslim Ahmadiyya community has called for authorities in the UK to monitor what happens in mosques and Islamic religious schools to help counter radicalisation. Ahmadiyya Muslims number many million across the world, and a movement that started in India over 100 years ago. However, they're considered apostates by other sects within Islam and have been suffering persecution in countries such as Pakistan, where they're banned. The annual gathering of over 30,000 people started in the UK on Friday, and our religious affairs correspondent Caroline Wyatt spoke to His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad and asked him what he believes has led to the radicalisation of young people.
I do not agree with this point that there is some link between radicalisation and Islam. You can say that there's a link between radicalisation and Muslims. But Islam is a teaching, and the teachings of Islam, it categorically explains that there should not be any extremism. There should not be anything which helps you to reserve the right of others in primary schools, in secondary schools, at every level. There should be daily pledge of the loyalty to their country. So that will bring into the minds of the people, small young children, that what do they need for their country?
And what do you think is driving that radicalisation, that extremism, amongst that small minority of young Muslims?
You see, it was actually smouldering for some time after the Iraq war. And then, you see, there were so many things in the mind of the Muslims, and it was incited by the Muslim clerics that West is causing the trouble to finish Islam, to stop developing the Islamic countries. And the Iraq war flared it up. Later on, the economic crisis of 2008 also played a role in it. And these organizations, I don't know who is funding them, but they are being funded heavily by some big powers.
And so are those young people misunderstanding their faith, but also being taught wrongly?
They are being taught in the madrasas or their religious schools. We are also running our seminary, our religious teaching institution here in UK. You go there, you see their syllabus and curriculum. You would never find anything wrong in it. And even they are more loyal, even I would say that they are more loyal to some of the original British people. Right? Why? Because we are teaching them their duty towards their country, to their nation. This is why I always say that these madrasas should be monitored. And somebody asked me that it is spying. I say it is not spying. It is the duty of the government to monitor not only their madrasas, to monitor the mosques as well. What the sermon is being delivered, what the activities are being done there in those mosques.
What can people do to ensure that their children are not radicalised? Is it also up to parents?
Parents should also be educated. There are quite a number of mosques here who are speaking ill of each other, and especially of the Ahmadiyya community. There should be a message of love, harmony and peace from the mosques.
Caroline Wyatt speaking there to His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, the leader of the Muslim Ahmadiyya community. There's 30,000 of them meeting in Hampshire this weekend, and we'll be crossing live there just after 7 o'clock, catching up with Imam Safir Zartash from the Gillingham Mosque. It's BBC Radio Kent, Sunday Breakfast with me, Phil Harrison. And we've got three familiar faces with us today. First of all, we'll start with the lady to my left. We've got Nadra Ahmed, chair of the the National Care Homes Association. Good to have you with us, Nadra.
Good morning. Good to be here again.
And we're talking about the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association a bit later on. It's their big Jalsa Salana. We've got Imam Safir Zartash joining us direct from their site in Hampshire, where 30,000 people are meeting. And you've got memories of the earlier events before it came to such a giant scale.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first came to England and we were quite young, there was a small mosque in Putney, and the Jalsa Salana would take place there. But we've grown as a community, and watching it on the television, you can see it on 787, I think it is. The arrangements are phenomenal when you think the numbers of people, the cars, the security, because Hazur is always under threat. So there's massive security around him.
It's on a par to certainly a medium-scale music festival. There's the V Festival taking place in Chelmsford this weekend. It's of a similar scale to that, and there's men and women coming from all over the country, all over the world, and descending on the land that over time has been bought more and more pieces of it to accommodate people to hold this giant event.
And it's a faith festival, if you like. I mean, I think that's quite a good way of describing it, because everything is on site, and you actually see they make the curry, the food there, and it's really very, very delicious. My dad he can't go this year, but he kept talking about it. And they make the chapatis hot. They've actually got a machine, and it's just worth watching. It's an amazing feat achievement, really.
We're going to be getting the sights, the sounds and the flavours a bit later on from Safir. Of course, Ahmadiyya Muslims, there's millions of them around the world, but persecuted in a lot of countries, and you've got experience of that within your own family.
Yes, I mean, I think there was a time where it was when they were first decreed to be non-Muslims because of the slight difference in interpretation, in that within the Quran it indicated that there would be a certain time where somebody would come to reinforce the faith. We believe that person came at the time that was decreed, others do not, and so it's a matter of contention. And so there was a council of Muslims, that Muslim hierarchy, who decreed that they were non-Muslims, and so there was a free-for-all of persecution, especially in Pakistan, persecution all over. And I remember a very elderly uncle coming over who'd actually been dragged backwards, having been tied to a horse through the village that he lived in. So it was awful, and I think it still carries on. It's just not as well documented.
Well, it's a terrible story, but good news that in this country you can practice religion freely.
Absolutely,
of any
and a
colour or
very
creed.
growing community.
Yeah, very professionally presented. We'll be hearing from Safir a bit later on. We've also it's the Jalsa Salana. 30,000 Ahmadiyya Muslims are meeting for their annual convention, a specially acquired zone that they have in southern England, in Hampshire. It's been taking place all weekend, and the pervading message is that of peace. We've already heard of the Ahmadiyya Muslim leader Hazrat Mirza Masood Ahmad talking earlier about the plans to stamp out radicalisation of young people, and that how more Muslims should swear allegiance to this country. Does that ring true with our guest now on the line? We've got Imam Safir Zartash from the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mosque in Gillingham, no stranger to the programme, of course. You've been part of the weekend for the last 2 or 3 days, haven't you, Safir?
Yes, Phil, good morning. In fact, I've been lucky enough to take part in this annual convention, Jalsa Salana in Arabic. That means annual convention. And this annual convention is always organized by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community every year, and it dates back to 1891 when it first started by the founder of our community, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who we also believe to be the promised Messiah of the latter days, and whose advent was prophesied by Holy Prophet Muhammad. And we believe also in other religions there was expected of a Messiah to come and unite people.
Now, tell us about the underlying message of peace that His Holiness has been trying to put across to the assembled congregation.
Yes. So the two purposes of this Jalsa is basically, one is the individual spiritual experience which one gets by attending this annual convention, and the other one is to to come together to promote unity and peace, and to kind of get to know each other and stand together against all kinds of violence and extremism. And that is the underlying importance of this Jalsa Salana, which our leader, the worldwide leader, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, emphasized. And he always highlights this issue of extremism, which we have been seeing in seeing in the news recently, where youth are being radicalized and going to Iraq and Syria to fight for a cause which is basically not Islamic. So what Our Holiness has instructed us is to understand the Islamic teachings, what the real teachings are. And if they understand that through this annual convention, they'll be able to understand that Islam is a religion which stands for peace. And so we are able to prevent further people to be radicalized and to commit such heinous crimes.
Is it seen as a controversial plan in the Muslim community to have young Muslims swear allegiance to Great Britain, as he was suggesting we heard earlier?
No, what we do is that we do not necessarily pledge allegiance to a country. We pledge allegiance to Islamic teachings, and the Islamic teaching teaches us that you should be loyal to the country in which you live in. That is the saying of the Holy Prophet Muhammad himself. So that is what we are trying to spread this message, that if you are trying to be a good Muslim, a true Muslim, you have to act on this teaching of Islam as well, which is to be loyal to the country in which you live in. For example, when officially when the Jalsa Salana starts, it's started by the Friday sermon of the Caliph, and after that the flag of the Ahmadiyya is hoisted, and also the Union Jack is hoisted, and that signifies that we do not only regard our religion, we do not only pledge allegiance to our Khalifa, but we also pledge allegiance to remain loyal to the country in which we live.
So, Safir, so there's a pledge to the British flag as well. We're with Nadra Ahmed, chair of the National Care Homes Association, and she's also an Ahmadiyya Muslim, and she remembers when the Jalsa Salana was a much smaller event, don't you?
Well, there were fewer. Assalamu alaikum. Are you okay?
Walaikum assalam.
I do. I remember it in the sort of late 60s, and it was there were not as many Ahmadis in this country at that time. The Hazur was based in Rabwa in Pakistan before all the trouble started, and I think since he's been based here, it's got bigger. But I just remember it, and my childhood memories of going to the Jalsa Salana on an annual basis, and the importance of it, actually, the bringing together and the reinforcement. But that message of peace and that message of integration is such an important message, and it's so well articulated by Hazur, in that this is not about your allegiance to a country, as you're saying. This is an allegiance to the faith that you have, because within that faith, it is very clear that you must integrate within a community. That doesn't mean you lose anything about the faith that you practice. We still practice that.
Now, finally, Safir, it's a large event, 30,000 people. It's akin to a festival, a lot of people there. What is the scale of the Jalsa Salana? How do they feed? How do they house so many people at that site in Hampshire?
Yes, this is very fascinating when you look at the arrangements of this annual convention, everything from accommodating the guests which are coming from all around the world, and then catering for their food and their accommodation and everything. So this is a huge event, and mostly, almost 99% of the people working and organizing this event are volunteers, and they are so drilled in their duties that they have now perfected their duties in form of how to accommodate and organize this annual convention. So just imagine if you are having 30 to 40,000 guests coming for 3 days to live at the site and have food there and enjoy the Jalsa. You have to have a lot of arrangement in place, and that is all being done by the volunteers of the community. And obviously free accommodation is provided for them. Everything, the facilities, washing facilities, food, and everything is being provided by the community members. And it's fascinating to see that how everyone is, fulfilling their duties of hospitality with great satisfaction, great pleasure, and also with great dedication.
Safir, absolute pleasure. That's Imam Safir Zartash there from the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mosque in Gillingham, joining us from Jalsa Salana, a phenomenal logistic organisation. Have a peaceful and enjoyable time there.